But this is a war. This isn't a battle. And we absolutely will win this war.
It is a war. It is indeed a war. And I have to say, they have won some battles, Jasmine, but we have to keep our eye on the war, and everybody needs to pick up a weapon and get involved.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Leftist Extremism. Well, how can the leftist media cover for all the Biden failures this week? Let's look at some of the ways, shall we? Anyone with half a brain knows that the economy isn't doing good right now. But for those of you with less than half a brain, I give you NBC economics expert Stephanie Ruhle.
Stephanie Ruhle joins us now. Stephanie, what does this expected move by the Fed mean to all of us?
Lester, when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, that is a signal that the economy is doing well.
No, it actually means no such thing. Inflation alone is at a 40-year high, which is exactly why the Federal Reserve has decided to raise interest rates. And of course, raising interest rates doesn't help supply chain issues, labor shortages, or increase the nation's oil supply.
Lester, when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, that is a signal that the economy is doing well.
The economy. That's one of the reasons that Biden's poll numbers are lower than the amount of Neil Young tracks available on Spotify right now. But MSNBC must make excuses for these numbers to defend their master. Let's go around the room.
Obviously, Biden is saddled with very slim margins in the House and the Senate, which I think is some of the belief, like, hey, he's aimed too big. You know, he should be more modest in what he tries to accomplish. We see his poll numbers now, not all that high.
Not all that high? Well, that's an understatement, isn't it? But wait, it gets better.
You know, I do think that it's a little overhyped. Oh, Biden's approval is so far down. It's just a really terrible time right now. We're going into year 3 of a pandemic. People are tired. People are just sick of having their lives upended. And especially for the month of January, didn't really feel that there was an end in sight. And so I think really so much of it is situational.
The situation being that Biden's a weak president with a terrible record on everything from the border to Afghanistan to inflation to COVID.
But you go back and you look at the numbers. They started falling with Afghanistan, but then Delta, then Omicron, and inflation. You have all of these things that you've got a virus that keeps coming back because people won't get vaccinated first. And secondly, you have inflation. And I don't care who the president of the United States is. And yes, you know, you and I have talked about that and make a lot of sense to spend trillions and trillions of dollars when you're in an inflationary situation. Still, as Ratner always tells us, there's $2 trillion sitting on the sidelines. People haven't been able to spend their money for a couple of years. It doesn't matter who the president of the United States was.
Actually, I think it might. I mean, Scarborough even mentioned the big government spending thing.
You know, you and I have talked about that and make a lot of sense to spend trillions and trillions of dollars when you're in an inflationary situation.
Well, you don't want to ask Biden about his high inflation like Fox's Peter Doocy did this week.
On Monday, when a Fox News reporter asked him a question about inflation, Mr. Biden fired off an insult.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
The left had to work overtime to excuse cuss-slinging Biden right away.
Because the backdrop is so different than it was during the Trump years, when you had a president trying to destroy the American media, trying to undermine the American media, using crude and crass and profane language, and also doing it in an indecent way that was suffused throughout his presidency. So certainly the press had to speak out against that. Now we see with Biden something different, right? He has a little bit of a mischievous smile on his face when he's talking to, responding to Doocy.
Oh, you see, he was smiling, so it's different.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
You know, this only happened because Joe is frustrated.
The president was clearly frustrated that he was being peppered with questions about Ukraine at an economic event, and Doocy's question, even though it was on topic, clearly struck a nerve with the president. Cecilia.
But he appeared frustrated, saying he wanted questions on the subject of the event, which was related to the economy.
So it's really frustrating to get questions on the subject that you said you'd take questions on. Okay. Joe is failing so badly, how can the media possibly distract Americans from his glaring failures? I mean, perhaps they could compare him to a popular president like, say, Ronald Reagan?
I think Joe Biden and Ronald Reagan have some similarities in the sense that they are both confronting some difficult economic conditions. I think that there is sort of regard for them personally as people who have the interests of the country on the whole at heart.
And they're both carbon-based life forms, huh? And they both breathe air. Seems like they have a lot in common.
I think Joe Biden and Ronald Reagan have some similarities.
That unique cut on history brought to you by Gillette. Give them a call and ask them to maybe shave down some of the channels that they advertise on. But even comparing Biden to Reagan doesn't work. Not so surprisingly, Biden's poll numbers keep on tumbling, so the leftist media was in fevered hope that something might come and provide a distraction.
You're in the Biden White House and you need a reset. Well, you just got one. Justice Stephen Breyer, one of the court's 3 liberal justices, is retiring, paving the way for Joe Biden's first Supreme Court appointment. And politically speaking, it could not have come at a better moment for this White House, for this Democratic Party. The debate over Breyer's successor is going to give this president and his party a rallying cry at a moment that they badly need something to rally around, and at a moment he needs to put some points on the board. I don't think this could have come at a better time politically for this White House.
Could Chuck Todd seem any happier about this?
I mean, the timing here, if you're Ron Klain and President Biden and you're like, what do we do with Build Back Better? Voting rights is stalled, Russia, Ukraine. This has to feel like a political elixir right now.
A political elixir. Well, don't try to drink too fast there, leftist media. You just might choke on it. It's all they got to avoid discussing the Biden badness. Well, and of course, to talk about, you guessed it, Trump. Speaking of choking, CNN's Jim Acosta got to be the new host of his show this week, and all 8 people got to witness him report the facts. Well, no, it's Acosta. It's got to be fake news. So let's enter the make-believe world as Jim reports on, and I'm not kidding here, what the world would be like now if Trump was still president.
Yes, when a would-be dictator seizes power, anything goes at that point. There goes the January 6th investigation. Like the Republican Party is going to stop him? Certainly not the 147 Republicans in the House and Senate who still voted to overturn the election results even after the attack on the Capitol. Those lawmakers could have turned to the Trump team plan for bogus alternate electors outlined in recent days by Trump advisor Boris Epshteyn, which sounds like another scheme Trump advisor Peter Navarro dubbed the Green Bay Sweep. But there would be other news outlets where you could find the truth, right? Well, now they don't do the free press in autocracies. Just ask Trump's friends in Saudi Arabia or Russia. But there still would be state television.
Just like there is on CNN right now, right, Jim? Believe it or not, the leftist media gets even worse this week. Here's MSNBC host Tiffany Cross urging people to get weapons and fight Republicans who want election security.
But this is a war. This isn't a battle. And we absolutely will win this war.
It is a war. It is indeed a war. And I have to say, they have won some battles, Jasmine, but we have to keep our eye on the war, and everybody needs to pick up a weapon and get involved, because this is for the safety and lasting of the country.
I'm not going to say that the leftists always desire censorship and violence to get their way, but I will let them say it.
We have to keep our eye on the war, and everybody needs to pick up a weapon and get involved.
Yeah. I'm Eric Shiner from MRC-TV. Be sure to check out the great gear that's available to you at the MRC Store. Shirts, hats, hoodies, and more. For great content, there's one place to stop. MRCTV.org has the latest blogs, videos, and entertainment. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe on the social media platforms that let you see our videos. And we'll be back next week with more media madness.